Well, hello and welcome to my latest photography video. Today I'm going to be working very closely with an old friend of mine. This is Lemmy. We're going to be doing a couple of things indoors where you can practice your photographic technique and hopefully learn a couple of little tips along the way. All this said, I have to tell you that I've made a bit of a false start with this video because I haven't got a coffee. So bear with me, I'm going to nip out, get a coffee and I'll come straight back. Okay, I've had my coffee, all is good. Okay, so now today the video is going to largely be about ISO. Now, yawn, and for those people who find ISO difficult or difficult to understand how to use it and when to use it, hopefully this video will get you some more information that you can put to practical use. And I'm going to use my little friend Lemmy over here, over there, to give you a few examples of how you can use ISO in situations where you still want to hold the camera handheld, you can't use a flash or you haven't got a flash, and you need to get shutter speeds that are fast enough to be able to do that and an aperture that you're looking for. Now, in the days when you used to go and buy film, you used to walk into a chemist, you walk into a pharmacy, you walk into your camera store and you'd ask for a roll of film and it would look something like this. Okay, so for the eagle-eyed among you, you'd have noticed there was a number on that box which was 400, and that would have applied to the ASA. Now, when you used to go into these shops, you'd walk out with 400 ASA or 100 ASA or 800 ASA, and if you had to ask what that was all about, you'd often get told by the assistant that that was the film speed. But that was a bit confusing because although that's the term they used, it doesn't really relate to speed as such, more sensitivity. And it's better to think of it that way. Think of it as the film's sensitivity to light. The higher the number, 800, 1600, the more sensitive that film and now your sensor is to light. Now, in them days, there was a problem with film as much as you bought 400 ASA, you had to stick with it until you'd finished a roll of film or abandon that roll of film halfway through and then change it. These days, it's the turn of a knob and we call it ISO. It's the same thing. Okay, so today's experiment, for want of a better word, is to take little Lemmy here, put him in the shadows more than he is now. I'm going to shut this blind down here in a moment. And then we're going to use the camera to change the ISO settings only, therefore increase the sensitivity of light coming into the sensor and see how that affects Lemmy, who will be in pretty much shadow and darkness. I'm going to set the camera up with the same aperture, the same shutter speed. That's not going to change. All that's going to change is the ISO and Lemmy is going to be brought out of the shadows. Let's have a look at the settings I've chosen to use. Okay, so here are the settings I've got on my camera for this little experiment. As you see, I'm on manual and I've got my shutter speed at 1/90th of a second. Now, we generally say that handheld, you want to be faster than about 1/60th of a second. 1/90th should give you a reasonably sharp image, so I've put that in there as a default. f5.6 is the aperture. Now, that's again, a lot of lenses don't get any bigger than f5.6. Obviously, if yours does, that's terrific. But again, I've put that in there as a default, so it covers most lenses that would have an aperture of that size. And here we have the ISO of 100, which is our starting point for the first photograph. And then we're going to be continuously increasing that as the pictures go on. But I am not going to be changing these settings. The shutter speed and the aperture will remain the same, only the ISO will change. So with the ISO at 100, as you can see here, Lemmy's still pretty much in the dark and there's barely any detail visible at all. We crank that up to 400 and Lemmy's now got a bit of colour, a bit of light, and it's certainly improving all the time. When we get to ISO 800, we've now got pretty good light, nice bit of contrast and colour, and remember, I haven't changed those settings, it's still 1/90th of a second f5.6. At 1600 ISO, you can pretty much argue that picture is perfectly exposed and ready to go. At 3200, we're now getting slightly overexposed, but again, remember that this effect has been achieved with nothing other than changing the ISO dial. By 6400, is actually overexposed, and we're starting to see noise and grain. Now this is the risk when you associate high ISOs, as this random picture I've put of Kim Kardashian shows you. Very high ISO brings grain and noise to the image, which can be a distraction. Okay, well hopefully that's helped to explain ISO a little bit and to start getting you to use that as part of your repertoire along with the aperture changes and the shutter speed changes. Just a couple other things to mention. One is that when you go out and do night photography or photography where you're using a tripod, you don't need to have the ISO right up. You want that light sensitivity down low. It's because you're compensating for the fact that you're shooting in the darkest situation by having a tripod where you can adjust the shutter speeds down to very slow, down to 1, 2, 3 seconds or even more. So we often get questioned when we take people out on night safaris when they say, oh, I remember you said low light situations, we should be increasing our ISO. You only want to increase your ISO in low light situations to give you better shutter speeds and better apertures when you're trying to hand hold the camera. If you're on a tripod, it doesn't matter. You want that light sensitivity down low. You don't want the blacks to be grainy in the sky or in the buildings. So keep the apertures down to about, the ISO down to about 100 if you're doing cityscapes at night on a tripod. The other thing to do is to try to get used to taking the ISO out of auto, because in low light situations the camera will always try to push the ISO up to the highest level to give you the shutter speeds and the aperture that it thinks you need. Now it might be right, but it's better if you can control it yourself. Keep the ISO as low as you can and see if you can get the desired shutter speeds and apertures by adjusting them first. Otherwise, a lot of your pictures taken at night will be very grainy and noisy, as I demonstrated with the random Kim Kardashian slide. Now, okay, so there's a bird just flown into this tree over here, which is a Spangled Drongo. I kid you not. It is a Spangled Drongo, really beautiful bird. So just give me a sec. I may come back with nothing, but I'm going to see if I can grab my camera and get a couple of quick shots because it's beautiful. Don't go away. Okay, success, as you can see. So that was very fortuitous and took the video into strange territory, but you've got to seize the moment. So wasn't going to talk much about, or wasn't going to talk at all about bird photography, but seeing as that opportunity was there, just a couple of quick tips for anyone who gets visitations from their local feathered friends. Bird photography and wildlife photography in general is pretty much a combination of patience and blind luck. On that occasion, I just went for the blind luck. However, having your camera ready and to hand when a bird sort of comes into your vicinity is a wise move. And if you can get the settings down so that they're sort of ready to go. I had an aperture there pretty big, f2.8. And a reasonably fast shutter speed. I could have cranked the ISO up even more actually, which is in relation to what we've been talking about, to get a faster shutter speed, but bird was fortunately not moving too much, which was great. So yeah, so just get the camera ready and that's your best chance. Otherwise you're going to go and grab it, and by the time you come back and you've set your camera up and you press buttons and dials and knobs and taken lens caps off the birds on the other side of the mountain. Okay, anyway, so that's a pretty fortuitous little moment, and I'll share another picture I took of the said Spangled Drongo. Okay, well that's the end of another video. It was specifically meant to deal with ISO, but somehow we got dragged into Spangled Drongo territory, but that's the fun of the game. At the moment, obviously, these videos are being slightly more limited to being at home and only getting out and about for the essentials, coffee, of course, included. But yep, so I'm going to come up with another couple of ideas and put another video together in the next few days or so. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, do the right thing, and get your cameras out and practice indoors. Plenty of things to practice. And if you've got any questions or you'd like to suggest a topic for a video moving forward, I'd be only too pleased to hear them. And anyway, well, just put it in the messages or text me, whatever people do these days. And I will speak to you soon. Take care, guys. Bye.